Hi there. I thought I'd make a quick video because what else am I going to do? For my Patreons and also for YouTube. My Patreon, says he, the arrogance of, but my Patreons plural. There's one of them so far, but a great guy. I'm very grateful to him. I thought I'd tell you a story. Story time with Buckles, why not? I thought I'd tell you about the time I met David Carradine and hung out with him. Why not? Who else? But it's a good story. This is what happened. It's just interesting how threads of your life come together to create these moments. And this was one of them. I've been a massive fan of the Kung Fu TV series growing up. I loved it. It was one of them sort of Saturday night or Sunday night kind of things you look for, shows you look forward to. That and The Incredible Hulk were basically my two. Later on, the A-Team, but Kung Fu and The Incredible Hulk were the biggies. Because they both had a similar theme, the idea of the little man who's put upon, but then, you know, has a moment where the power exchange switches and he deals with the bullies. In the Hulk's case, by turning into a green giant, by Bill Bixby turning into Lou Ferrigno. And in Kung Fu's case, by Kwai Chang Caine, played by David Carradine, talking about peace and love and just sharing his wisdom throughout the show. And then, you know, in the last 5 minutes, kicking the shit out of all the bad guys and looking really cool doing it. Of course, and back then I had no idea that he was rubbish at Kung Fu. Do you know what I mean? I thought that was what Kung Fu was, those weird movements that he did, those sort of weird, sort of swirling kind of, it was more like judo, basically, rolling on his back and like doing the William Shatner kick to flip people over his head. And they'd slow down. They do always slow motion for the fights, which I assume was to kind of, you know, make it more, such was his speed that they had to slow down the camera so you could see the intricacies of what he was doing, when the truth was he was actually not particularly gifted at the movements and they were just trying to make it look better than it was. But it mattered not. He was cool and I loved him. I love that character. And then as time goes on and you sort of, you know, I did a bit of Kung Fu for a time and you sort of realise, all right, what I'm doing here is not what he was doing there. And time goes on and I read his book, Endless Highway. He wrote a couple of books. He wrote one called The Spirit of Shaolin, a Kung Fu philosophy, which is entertaining, but it's not, there's very little in there that's actually proper Taoism, proper Zen, proper Kung Fu. I mean, but it's an entertaining read, but you've got to take it with a pinch of salt. It's the drug-addled ramblings of a man who was no stranger to a mushroom, and but it's still a cracking. It's a romp, you know, but there's no depth to it. And the other book he wrote was Endless Highway. He also wrote one called The Kill Bill Diaries, which I love, which was his last book, which basically charts his time making the film Kill Bill with Quentin Tarantino, where it's quite poignant because he's talking about a comeback that never happened, if you know what I mean. He's anticipating a big comeback off the back of Kill Bill, and that was not to be. But the main book he wrote, the big one, is Endless Highway, the story of his life. In his own words, it ranks as literature. He's stretching it a bit there, but it's just an amazing read because you're reading it and it's like it's a life that's best described as a car crash. It's massively entertaining. It really is entertaining. But at no point do you think this is a good man that I'm reading about, you know. But it is a cracking tale. It's a very Jack Kerouacian kind of, you know, he does evoke an America and that I love. And the stories are great. The stories really are great. And there's always a little bit at the end, like the story will be about something he's done. But that's involved cheating on a partner, but it's always somebody else's fault. The best bit being when he cheats on Barbara Hershey and he blames John Drew Barrymore, saying that, oh, he took me to this party with all these beautiful girls knowing I'd be tempted, so it's obviously on him, not me, you know. But I love the book and I love the myth of him more than the man himself. I love the myth of this kind of warrior poet, making some great films and some bloody dreadful films, but always cool in them. Even Future Zone, which is a film that he basically made drunk. There's a life there, you know. I was into him, and so I just done this audition for a pantomime in the UK for the part of Mr. Smee, my first and indeed last panto. And I got on the part, but I was about to get on the train to go for this audition, and I get this a call from a mate who used to work at this cinema store in London, this memorabilia shop in London, to just tip me off. He'd let me know that you're a David Carradine fan, aren't you? And I'm like, well, yeah. And he told me, oh, well, guess what? He's going to be in this afternoon. He's here. He's going to be here. He was on his way up to Birmingham for like an autograph convention, and he'd flown into London, and then he was going to go to the cinema store just to hang out, and then they were going to drive him up to Birmingham. But for a few hours, he'd be in the cinema store signing stuff, and did I want to meet him? And I'm like, yeah, I'll get up here quick, because this is an impromptu thing. We've not advertised this, but he's here. Come and meet him. So I've done this audition, grabbed my book, jumped on the tube, done the audition, got back on the tube, shot across town. And I'm in a rush because I'm assuming that I'm late. I feel like I'm late. He's not going to be there when I get there. I want to try and catch him. So I come out of Charing Cross and I'm hightailing it up the Strand, hoping I'm going to get across the Strand, up Shaftesbury Avenue. I'm not going to get there in time. I'm sweating, wheezing, running, got this heavy book under my arm. And I burst into the store. Like, and my mate sort of sees me and goes, oh, he's over there. And I look, and he was just sat watching they have a television monitor up in the corner, and he was just sat there watching it, kind of just very laid back. He was sort of sat at the end. He had a flute with him. He was wearing a brown leather jacket, this sort of thick brown leather jacket they used to wear, really cool shirt, and he had one of those suntans that you only get from living in California your whole life. Do you know what I mean? Those sort of permatans with a little bit of liver spotting to prove that it's real. White hair, long white hair. And I can only describe it as he looked his age, but he didn't move his age. He was just very soft, that you could see the years of Tai Chi had kind of had some sort of an effect. And he had a flute with him. I remember that and all. He had this flute that was like hanging off of the chair on like a leather strap that he was obviously carrying with him for some sort of an effect. As one does. I often take to the streets with my flute. It's that or a keyboard, depending on the mood that I'm in, but I always carry a musical instrument just in case. But he's got the flute there, and he's just big silver rings on as well, massive silver rings. And he's smoking indoors, which at the time you weren't allowed to do. Well, you can't do it now, but like even then, and he was smoking away like that. There was a do not smoke sign right there that he was just ignoring, just smoking, watching this TV. Cool as all. I mean, just radiating calmness. And he had his little mate with him that I don't know the guy's name, but he appears in a couple of the extra features on the Kung Fu DVD set. This little guy that used to travel around with him everywhere, like a personal assistant, I imagine. They were friends. I don't know the guy, but a nice man. And he's got piles of photographs and things, and I'm sweating cobs from the run. So I wander over to him. Oh, Mr. Carradine, Mr. Carradine, I've been a massive fan all these years. I love your movies. I love Kung Fu. The Silent Flute was a great movie for me. And he's just looking at me like, huh? And I love the books. I've read all your books. Spirit of Shaolin's wonderful, and I love it all. Takes a puff. This goes. I can't do the voice, but have you been running? Delivered like that. Have you been running? And I went, yeah, I was in a rush to get here because I thought I'd have missed you. I thought you'd have been gone by now, And looks back to the television like that. He looks back at me. And I go, could you sign my book, please? And he went, takes my copy of Endless Highway from me. This tome, opens it up. And he takes this fountain pen that he's got, beautiful looking fountain pen, the pen that Bill would have in his pocket from Kill Bill. Undoes it, opens the books, and he starts writing. And he's writing and writing and writing. He's not just writing best wishes, David Carradine. He keeps going and going and going. And I'm like, bloody hell, is he writing me a sonnet? Like, is this going to be a letter? Actually, it is. I'll read it to you in a minute. But he's going and going and going. does a flourish at the end, closes the book, hands it back to me. And then I go, because I'm thinking, right, I'm only going to get this one shot. So I say to him, can I be really cheeky and get a signed photograph as well? And he just went, yeah, you can be as cheeky as you like. Gets this photograph, signs it for me. That was short. That was just a proper, like, he just wrote his name and to me, gives me the photograph. And then it was like clear. The audience was open. I mean, we chatted a bit, but it wasn't, it was just a lovely exchange. But he was properly into whatever he was watching. But he didn't. There was a proper moment, a couple of moments of proper eye contact. He reached out like that, made the eye contact, shook hands with me. I went back to his thing. Took my book. Well, lovely to meet you, Mr. Carradine. He went. It was like he was living. I mean, it's no secret. It's in his book. Do you know what I mean? His own words that he was an acid casualty. But it was like he was living 25 feet behind his eyes. Does that make sense? Like he was all the way over there. So when you spoke to him, you had to wait for the words to reach him. And then you had to wait for his answer to come back. It was like that. He was just like really far back in his consciousness almost. So I make my excuses and leave. And that was my encounter with David Carradine. And I'm sat on the tube going home, and suddenly it occurs to me that I've not actually read what he's written. And I open it up. Now, bearing in mind the scene, I've burst in, I've been running to get there. He's asked me why I've come. And I'm like, to see you, Mr. Carradine, and I'm wheezing. This is what he wrote. This is the book, Endless Highway. David Carradine's Endless Highway. And here's what he wrote. It's right there, if you can see it. There's his handwriting. I love that, the way he signed his name. He'd signed his name with a... Oh, I'll get the lighting right. He signed his name with like a yin-yang symbol. And I tried to copy that when I was signing stuff myself. I tried to put the yin-yang symbol like when I was signing shit. And then realised that I really shouldn't be doing that. I could never quite get it right. He wrote this. To Danny, it's the journey that counts. The destination is largely a fallacy. David Carradine. 6th, 4th, 2005. 2005, Christ, 16 years ago. 16 years ago. The journey's the thing. It's the journey that counts. The destination is largely a fallacy. David Carradine. Isn't that lovely? It's soon I've been rushing. No, mate, don't you don't rush. Enjoy the journey. The journey's the thing. The destination is a fallacy. I got the sense that he kind of knew what he was from the writing that. I could be reading too much into it. And the other thing he signed for me was this. I'll show you this. Here's the photo. Look at that. Oh, the light's screwing it up. There he is. Hey, Kill Bill. And on that he just wrote, Peace, Danny. David Carradine. And there you go. There's my little meeting with David Carradine story. Hope you enjoyed that. Brief little diversion. Hope everyone's well. And yeah, I'm going to make more of these little story videos. Why not? And so I'll see you on the next one.